words about our research center. Mackenzie Integrity is a research center of public policies and integrity that develops studies relevant for society. We work among several fields and sciences, and we establish connections with national and international organizations and research centers. The Energy Governance Research Group aims to present the state of the art of the energy transition in Brazil and other main countries, including laws, policies, technologies, stakeholders, and theses that offer legal and regulatory solutions, such as reinterpretation of existing law, new or more modified programs consistent with existing law, agency guidance or policy, legislation and administrative rulemaking, private governance initiatives, for instance, protocols, good practice, ESG guidelines, carbon markets, compliance, and certification systems, and other instruments. I want to state that today is the Legal Intern Day in Brazil, Professor. So without our legal interns here, Laura, Heitor, Isaac, also Lucas, Leticia, Elena, we would not reach not even half of what we achieved right now. So thank you so much for the hard work that you put here. The research group is now mapping the energy policy of Brazil. Yeah, so we talked about, you can change it. We are mapping the energy policies of Brazil and some selected countries, aiming to provide an interactive open access platform for researchers on the subject of energy governance, containing law, regulatory acts, key players, scientific studies, analyze the synergy between the themes of social environmental infrastructure and carbon markets, produce a comparative report and understand the global scenario and the restraints of the Brazilian regulatory framework, normative adaptation strategies to assist in the energy transition. So these are the professors that we are going to start. You can change. Thank you. So these are the professors that are going to succeed this August, the coming weeks. Professor Max is going to talk about waste to energy. Professor Ricardo, environmental licensing and bioenergy. Professor Susana from Rio de Janeiro, she's coming to speak about energy governance and the new industrial revolution. Professor Weber Amaral, he's from the Harvard University. He's speaking about energy transition and the carbon markets. Professor Melina is going to talk to us about the public policies and artificial intelligence in the energy transition. Professor Harrison is going to talk about the wind power in the northeast of Brazil and the exceed of production of energy. Professor Isabella Borbach, she's coming to talk about economic opportunities of the CCS and CCUS technologies. Professor Tamash is going to explain the biogas and biomethane programs in Brazil. And Professor Maria João Rolim from the Dundee University, she's going to talk about renewable hydrogen and regulation. So these are the professionals that are going to speak to us about the energy transition. And of course, the energy transition is part of the economy's decarbonization process, a reality that will extend in the coming decades. And Brazil has a large comparative advantage over the rest of the world, as our energy matrix provides over 45% of clean energy sources. If we consider only the electric matrix, Brazil produces over 90% of clean energy. But today we want to learn about the United States. So that's why we invited Professor David Loomis. Professor David Loomis gently accepted our invite, and he's a professor of economics at Illinois State University, and he's also the co-founder and director of the Center for Renewable Energy of the Illinois State University. Professor Loomis, it is an honor to have you here with us. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and sharing your time, your precious time with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Stop sharing. Stop sharing. Okay.
Are you seeing my slides?
Yes, Professor, thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for having me. Now I don't feel like I should be here after you introduced all the other speakers, and I would love to attend and hear what they have to say. So I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity, and I hope to give you a good overview. I'm happy to take questions and go into more depth on any particular issue as we go to the question and answer. I started out in kind of a non-traditional way. I worked in industry for 10 or 11 years before coming to the university, and I was in the telecommunications industry. And so as I came to Illinois State University as an assistant professor in 1996, it was just the right time in terms of transition. And in the regulatory area, it was really regulatory economics was focused less so on telecommunications and more on energy. So really, I started out as a new professor. I was doing telecommunications research, but focused a lot on the transition that the industry was making at that point away from monopoly and regulation and towards competitive markets. And we'll see that influence come out across the things that we're going to talk about. I've looked at policy issues, both in the state of Illinois and the broader community, and helped our Center for Renewable Energy, as was mentioned. So I'll start off with definition because there is some ambiguity depending on who you're talking to and how they reference things, what exactly we mean by the energy transition. The more narrow definition would just be the closing of electric generating plants using coal and the transition from coal, away from coal and towards renewables, with the biggest of those being wind and solar. And then all the issues that are associated with how do we go from base load generation that is dispatchable, meaning that we can generate it whenever we want, towards intermittent resources of wind and solar. How are we able to make that transition? So that's a whole set of issues. But a broader definition would also include the movement away from fossil fuels towards renewable resources. So here we're thinking of the transition mostly in the transportation sector away from crude oil and towards renewable resources, whether they be ethanol or whether they be electrifying the fleet of vehicles so that we have EVs, and we're seeing that transition in terms of passenger cars. But what do we do about other parts of the transportation sector in terms of trucking, other vehicles? Can we get to 100% there? And then the larger effort, probably the biggest one, would be the effort to decarbonize the economy. So the first bullet point would be basically the first step on that journey. And you could think of these as concentric circles, but the issues and the problems get thornier as we move from that one concentric circle out to the larger area. Just to highlight some of the things that are going to come up in terms of the difference on definition and scope. It's purely not academic, but it really goes to say where nuclear energy fits in. Are we looking at purely a renewable future, or is our goal to be carbon free? This is a particularly key issue for my home state of Illinois, because we have the largest number of nuclear generating plants of any state in the United States. We get close to 50% of our electricity for the state of Illinois comes from nuclear energy. So nuclear energy, just to be clear, is carbon free, but it's not renewable. So do we, how does that fit in? And are we comfortable with the nuclear byproducts that will come as a result of this generation, and the sourcing of uranium and where we're going to get that? So those are issues there. Obviously, if we're looking at the transportation sector, we're looking at electric vehicles, but how do we electrify the non-passenger fleet? What does that look like, and how can we do that effectively, cost effectively? It does include this transition of natural gas. Natural gas was viewed as being complementary to renewable energy on the transition to of the electric grid. But now there is a movement to do away with natural gas as a source for heating and cooking. And in the United States, heating by natural gas is very large in the northeast of the United States, and here in the Midwest, I would say it's 80% of the homes are heated by natural gas. So that's another big transition. And probably in terms of cooking, we have electric and natural gas stoves is probably 50-50, but we're looking at how do we transition, and how will we know when we're done? If we don't have a specific target and definition, we won't know exactly when we're done. So I'm going to show you a set of slides to give you a set of graphs to show you the transition of where we are right now and where we're headed, and how those definitions work themselves out in terms of magnitudes in the United States. So this is a flow chart, and on this left-hand side here, you have the sources of energy flow in the United States. I apologize if the printing is too small to see. I tried to make this as big as possible, but you can see the top is coal. Coal has been shrinking quite rapidly in terms of coal use in the United States, and we've been exporting more and more coal from the United States to other countries. The next is natural gas. So again, these the sizes here are relative to the BTU energy that is input here. Crude oil, this is crude oil that's domestically sourced in the United States. You'll see we have petroleum imports down below. So this is just what's domestically produced. Natural gas plant liquids is here. That's a smaller part. Here's nuclear, electric power. And then we finally get down to renewable energy. So renewable energy is just a very small bar still in terms of the overall usage of energy in the United States. The matching, and again, as we look at the magnitude of the problem, just take a look at the transportation sector here. These are who's consuming the electricity.